Hi guys, so I put up a post on social media a couple of days ago asking for people to send any general questions they might have with back rehab, back pain, training, exercise, that sort of thing. So I thought I'd read out some of the better ones I got and then give you some answers with a video, because that way it helps more people. The first questions I got from Mohab Mahat 99 is deadlift bad for a disc bulge injury? Again, the answer with any question is it depends. So how do we get a disc bulge? The mechanics of a disc bulge are flexion, so rounding of the lumbar, the lower spine, and adding compression to it. That's how we get a disc bulge or a herniation. Well, it doesn't happen instantaneously, it takes time to get there. So if you're doing a deadlift, whatever form of deadlift it may be, and you're slipping into compressed flexion because your technique's breaking down, then yes, it's going to be bad for you. If, however, you've got the right technique, the spine's locked into neutral, the core's on, and you can drive from your hips properly without having to slip into flexion, then no, it won't. Unless you've got like an end plate fracture, which is more of just a general compression injury, which sometimes people have. But that's a little bit different again. But in terms of a disc bulge, your non-negotiable is to avoid slipping into compressed flexion. So if your lower back kind of rounds out on the deadlift, and yes, it's going to make your problems worse. So you want to work out why you're doing that. So either you're lifting too much weight too soon, or you've got some sort of hardware structural issues going on in your core and the control of your hips. In particular, you might have kind of feeble glutes. That could be a problem. So yeah, if you slip into compressed flexion, then yes, it's going to make you worse. If you don't, then it won't. And then next question, if I can bring it up. Where are we? Okay, let's pick the best one. Okay, so George Bulges sent in a couple questions. So the first one he said is, how can you stop waking up with such a stiff back? What are the best sleeping positions? So sleep's a bit funny because it kind of depends on two things to be effective. But what should happen when you sleep at night is that you should be obviously taking the compression off your back, off your discs and your vertebrae, and it's almost like that bank account should refresh, ready for the next day. If that's not happening, there's a few things that could be going on. So obviously the obvious one is that perhaps your mattress isn't quite right and it isn't giving you the right sort of support. Again, that doesn't mean you need to spend $3 or $4 grand on a mattress, it just means you need to find the right one. The one I like is by Cosa, costs about $800, $900 for a queen size. And you can sort of adjust it and do various other things with it. So that's potentially something you need to check. Also, if you've got certain muscular imbalances, when you sleep at night and your nervous system kind of relaxes, it's going to favour certain muscles being put into a tight position versus the weaker ones. So it's what we call like your elastic neutral. So it's basically your body's going to put itself in a position where it's going to expend the least amount of energy, and to do that, it's going to let the more tighter dominant muscles go into a shortened position and let the kind of feeble ones go into more of an elongated position. So sometimes with people, if it's not the mattress that's a problem, it might just be because of the muscular imbalances the body's trying to work around as you rest at night. So again, good structured corrective exercise and rehab program will help with that, and actually your body then automatically pick better positions to be in. And the third thing as well is that when you take weight off of your back at night and things decompress, for some people it makes them very unstable around the spine, and that instability will force everything to kind of lock down to sort of protect it, and then they find as the day goes on that compression goes back in, it kind of things become more stable and suddenly weirdly more mobile. Again, that's more of like an instability around particular joints in the spine, and potentially a sign that you've got issues with things like multifidus control and proprioception, those sort of things as well. So 3 reasons there. So it could be the bed, could be your body's just trying to find, based on your muscle imbalances, it's putting you into weird positions, or 3, it could just be you've got a big instability problem that you're not aware of. Okay, next question. Unlock my phone. So yeah, George then also asked, best exercises for glute activation, also for multifidus firing, and to help alleviate fatty infiltration. So what he means by that is if with a lot of people, when they've got back issues, because they start moving a lot less, the quality of their muscle tissue starts to degrade, starts to atrophy, and he obviously gets more fatty deposits in it as you become more feeble. So the general answer to that is a methodical plan back into regular exercise and activity that is going to blow your back out in the process, is a short answer. In terms of multifidus particularly, so you want to start with things like McGill style side bridges and bird dogs in particular, with that kind of anti-rotation. Once you've got that, you can start to build up into things like suitcase carries. We carry a weight, one heavy weight on one side, and then also you can build on things like shoulder touches, renegade rows, those sort of things, and just kind of methodically build your way back up again. So it's not one particular exercise, it's more about the principle of having a progressive series of exercises that are going to help fix that problem, and understanding that the less movement you do, the more likely your muscles are going to atrophy and become feeble. And that's why I call some people with that kind of glass tree syndrome, where they don't move so much, they become very stiff and very brittle. So generally not moving for long periods of time is not a good idea, but you've got to be careful. And then last question, so from Rob Kavanagh on Facebook, he said, what are some good warm-up exercises for a jiu-jitsu practitioner with flexion intolerant back pain? So first thing we need to understand is that when you've got any particular aggravator for back pain, it's like a bank account. So the more times you slip into that aggravating position or pain trigger, the more you drain that bank account, the more things start to shut down. So if flexion's a problem, you probably don't want to be doing lots of flexion in your warm-up, because you're going to expend some of that bank account. Instead, what you want to do is make sure that if you are going to go into flexion, the load's nicely, evenly distributed throughout your spine. And the way to do that is to make sure it's stable, because a stable spine will be a mobile spine. Obviously there's caveats with that. So really the best idea, I think, for most people is just Stuart McGill's big three. So McGill curls, the side bridges, the bird dogs. Get yourself stable in all three planes of movement, so everything locks together, and you'll suddenly find your movement's going to be a lot more better. You can get into weird positions, you can invert your guard, you can roll a little bit. But then also when you are training and rolling, just be aware of where that bank account is. Because as it starts to get lower, that's the time to sort of just, okay, rolling and sparring for a day is over, I'm going to rest, leave some bank account for the rest of the day, and then the next day as well. But again, if you're stable, a nice stable spine is going to give you the best chance to give you the most amount of movement and have the biggest amount of bank account to let you do those sort of things like jiu-jitsu when you're in weird positions and upside down and getting stuck in people's spider guard and stuff like that. So again, my pick would be, just as a general recommendation, Stuart McGill's big three, McGill curls, side bridges, bird dogs. Maybe you can add some glute work on there as well, it's probably not a bad idea. Or maybe even Dr. Locke's big three for shoulders to make sure your upper back's nice and stable, because then that will facilitate having more movement from your thoracic spine. So there we go. That was the questions this week. If you've got any questions yourself, send them across, and I might try and do this as more of a regular thing, because some of the questions are actually pretty good. So anyway, take care.